Hey, what's up, guys? I've seen a lot of questions about the steering and setting it up and troubleshooting different issues that people are having, with their steering. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things that might help you out. Maybe not. Maybe you knew it already. But for anyone new out there, this might be able to, help you diagnose any issues that you may be having. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the front wheels and check the pillow balls. You don't want them too tight because it will bind up the steering. So I'll show you how to check that. Get these off. I always do this so I don't lose them. I have a habit of losing those, and that's not good. All right, so first thing I like to check is to make sure that the actual, come on, are you kidding me? The actual pillow balls are screwed all the way in. So that just takes a 2.5, and you just feed it right through here, and you can grab the thing and just make sure that those are tight. And I can see that mine are, so, and that looks good over there. So we're good to go on those. Disconnect your servo horn, so that way you can see how much, if there's any binding at all. So we'll take that off. Not the horn, you're going to take off the linkage. So this is always fun. Yeah, you should definitely start, when you're diagnosing these problems, always start with removing this screw right here. That connects the steering arm to your steering rack. So you have net. It pulls the whole servo out of the equation. So now that we've done that, you go back here. So let me tighten this up. See, if you crank these things down, like I just did, all right, and you go to move it, it won't even move. I mean, that is bound. So I back them off, I tighten them down, and then I back them off a hair and see how it feels. Oh, so, I mean, there is no binding whatsoever. And then I'll make sure that there's no back and forth wiggle. The bottom one does a little bit, so I'm going to tighten it up a hair. Still got some, maybe a little more. Still a little more. And again, I'm checking to see this is still totally free. No wiggle. Maybe a little tighter on this one. Alright, good to go. And now we're going to do the other side. This bottom one has a little bit of wiggle. I'm going to tighten it here. See, now that's not good. That's too tight, in my opinion. So I'm going to bring it back out until I get that free. There we go. That's good. All right, so that's how you set those. So another area you want to check are these two screws right here. They have a habit of backing themselves out, so you can Loctite these in. Actually, I just go ahead and check these before and after every run and make sure they're nice and tight. And you can make these, you can crank these down. It's not going to affect your steering. Now, what is going to affect your steering, but you still want to make sure that they're somewhat tight, or it's hard to see them, but there's, I don't even know if I can get to them without taking the front off. You can't really, but there's two screws that go in through the steering rack. And those screws will also loosen up and back out. Now you can't crank those down, and they have like a bolt. They look like bolts. And if you crank those down too hard, you're not going to have, it'll bind up your steering. It won't be free and easy like this. So you want to make sure that they're not too loose, but then when you put them back in, you want to make sure they're not too tight. This is something that you should, sort of check on a regular basis. The other thing you want to check is your servo saver, which is the thing that's connected to this that we disconnected before. So if that is too loose, see, I keep mine almost all the way up, and then I back it down a hair. But if that's too loose, when you have your tires on and you're on the ground and you go to turn, since you don't have enough tension on that spring holding the two halves of the servo saver together, it's going to separate. So you're going to get this is going to turn, but your wheels aren't going to turn. It's going to just end up separating right here on the servo saver. So I know a lot of people have issues with those. So with it coming loose, I've been lucky. Mine really hasn't. Again, I like setting these tight. I have an aftermarket servo in here. I'm not really too worried about stripping out the gears. Maybe if I was running the stock ADS 15, I might have an issue. But I really I set these things tight and then just check them periodically. I mean, you can tell when this is loosened up. I mean, your steering starts to really suck. And you'll be on the ground and you go to turn the wheels without even moving, and you'll see that it's, you'll hear your horn will be going back and forth, and your tires really won't be moving. So that's another thing to check. So once you got all that set up, we're going to go ahead and reconnect everything. And this is always, for me, a giant pain in the ass to hold this little tiny nut underneath while you do this. So there's a good chance I'm going to be stopping the video and magically it'll be back on, because you don't need to sit here and watch me do this. Alright, so now we got that linkage back together. Testing the free range of motion here. That's nice. Let me go grab a battery so we can test this out. That's my noisy Max 6 fan. All right. See, now look, I see my servo moving a little bit, so I'm going to tighten that up. Man, that sounds terrible. Let's see here. I don't want to strip these out, so I'm going to use my good driver. Oh yeah, see, I have some. Definitely had some room to tighten that down. Let's try that again. Much better. Boy, I'm gonna have to do something about that, huh? Alright, now let's put the tires back on. Also, I should note that I am running 7.4 volts into that servo, not 6. So, if you wondering why yours doesn't turn as fast, and you're running either the stock ESC or an ESC where you just have it set at 6, your servo is not going to perform as well as if you were running 7.4. I just had to rebind all my trucks because I got this new Spectrum DX5 rugged, and I really haven't gone through and set everything up yet, so I need to back off these end points a little bit. It's actually hitting the arm right here, so I'll do that off camera. You don't need to see that. So last thing I'm going to check here is I'm going to put it on the ground. And make sure we still have good steering, which I do. So anyway, that's how you know, those are some areas that you can check on your steering if you're having any issues with your servo or your steering or not turning. The other thing you do is if you have the stock radio, you want to check your dual rate. Make sure that's all the way up, because that's what limits your steering. So you turn your dual rate down, you know, you're only going to get like this, and you're going to be like, oh, well, what happened? Why am I, you know, what's wrong with my steering? And then a lot of times you just got to realize I got to turn up the dial. So, you know, you use the dual rate for like if you're doing high speed runs where you're just going to be going in a straight line and you don't want to be, you know, trying to control like this. If I was going 65 miles an hour, look how twitchy it is. So you can, you know, easily make a mistake and flip this thing, you know, by oversteering. So what you do is you turn the dual rate down so that maybe you only have, you know, maybe this much of steering, because you're just basically going in a straight line and you just want to maybe correct a little bit. And then when you come to a stop and you want to turn around, you would turn your dual rate up so you could turn the truck around. But that's really what that dual rate is for. This radio actually has a thing called exponential, where you can set it so that you still have your full range of motion, but you can dial it down so that it barely would move, you know, around center, and then as you got out, it would then go the full way, which is also very helpful when you, in fact, if I'm doing speed runs, that's what I do instead of screwing around with the dual rate. So that way when I get down there, I can actually just turn it the whole way, turn around and come back, as opposed to messing around with the dual rate. But in any event, that's something you want to check, because a lot of people think that their servo's going bad or there's something wrong when it's actually just a little knob on their tactic radio. So anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you in my future videos. Peace.